In the world of modern education, homeschooling has grown rapidly over the past couple decades. We are 3 homeschool graduates living in Manitoba, Canada, that were a part of that movement of homeschooling, but we all had fairly different experiences in what that homeschooling looked like for us. Now, as 3 filmmakers, myself, Mercer, and Caleb are now embarking on a journey to find out, how do they homeschool? In this episode, we're going to visit the Lawrenson family, a family of 9 who live in southern Manitoba.
How we homeschool is...
That's about right.
I know. It describes it so well.
It involves everybody. It's not recognizable as, oh, that's when school's happening and this is when the rest of life happens. Homeschool is just living, and the kids take responsibility for a lot of things that a normal public schooled student would not take responsibility for necessarily.
Yeah, so there's lots of family involvement in our everyday life that we consider to be absolutely essential to what education is. But if people are asking that question, they're often wondering about the academic side. How do you teach your kids to read and write and be literate people? And how do you make sure that they can get into university when they're all done? So the answer to that is more along the lines of we're looking to give them a leadership education. So our method is to use great books, starting with the Bible, branching out into other classic literature, great minds of people that have gone before, and studying those things together, mostly together, with parents, kids, reading and studying together, asking questions together, putting out certain amount of effort into understanding what we're reading, and then that's sort of the core of our educational model. So it means that a lot of our core homeschool is done together. We call it group school. So we do that first thing in the morning after breakfast, and that usually takes anywhere from 1 hour if we have a busy day with other things going on, all the way to 2 or more hours in the morning. And then we also incorporate that whole reading together and talking about things at breakfast, where we read the Bible and a few things like that. And then in the evening, where we also read the Bible and discuss it in a different way, and a few other kinds of literature. So probably in total, we're reading aloud, probably on a normal day, 3 hours, with all of us in the same room.
I'm Heath Lawrenson, child number 3, man. And I'm here at my desk. Well, the way school works is we have subjects, we have 3 hours to get those subjects done. If we get that done before then, we get the rest of the time off. So I get to do whatever I want, and the little fiddly projects I'm working on are my own free time. So.
What do you usually have to do in that time?
Well, I have to do writing and arithmetic, and I do have some reading that I sort of have to do, and then science, and that's basically it. I'll have some other projects, but yeah. We do have school that we all do together, so it'll be read aloud and we do things like that, but then there's some subjects that I will just do by myself, and
I think that answers the question, how do we homeschool as far as, books and subject matter?
Yeah.
I think that we also want to learn the kids' interests and have them go ahead and follow up on a lot of things that are motivated by their own interests. So some of the kids are learning languages, and they're not the same languages. They're the ones that are, driven by an interest that they would have. The kids each have different pursuits and different, apart from school, they have a lot of free time.
Music, lots of time spent doing music and
Yeah.
hobbies, I guess you'd call it, but trying to make it useful projects, useful skills to learn at the same time as being fun.
I'm Celeste, and I'm the not quite sibliarch, but I'm the female sibliarch of this family. Well, right now I'm sewing this jacket, which will be for a ball that I'm going to in June, and I like to sew, so I'll often make projects like this, but I often have to fly by the seat of my pants. I also help reading to the kids in group school, and I like to help with that, and I also like to do my own projects working on the computer, and I really like writing, so I write letters to friends, and I write stories and in my diary, and lots of writing is my favorite. I actually don't do very much to help with the schooling of the little kids. I'd almost like to do more. I mean, sometimes they'll read to me or whatever, but mostly it's just reading aloud in school right now, in group school.
And then we're also requiring them a lot of work. Like there's keeping a household, and there's keeping a farm, and there's going out. If there's a reason that the family's heading out to do something, we all get involved together as a typical thing. And it's like somebody might say, well, I'm not as interested in this, but sometimes the answer is, yeah, well, we're doing it.
Yeah.
And we're gonna be able to accommodate each other. So there's advantages there for just the relationships, the learning that happens when it's not all about you. It's about other people and the group. Hopefully is what is understood through some of that.
We're gonna fill the house, not fill the house, but we're gonna bring wood in for the wood stove.
Do you enjoy doing this?
Not at all.
So we're about to go and do wood. So the kids are saying they don't like doing wood. Wood is a lot of work. It's a work-intensive way to heat your home. It's also very affordable, and it gets you out in nature, and it forces you to work together. So we enjoy it, and having a fire all the time is very nice, very pretty, I have to say. So different people have different opinions on wood heat, but if you have a bit of time, it's worth it. We burn 7 or 8 cords a year usually, so that's quite a few trees. But we're almost all taking dead trees from the bush that have floated in on the river. So we rarely ever chop down anything that's growing. At least we'd never do that on our property because we don't have that many trees compared to the amount we burn. But there's a pretty never-ending supply of dead wood out there that's very affordable and easy to collect if you're willing to go out and chainsaw it.
So every day we have set work times. So when you wake up, you have work time before breakfast. Some people make breakfast, some people do tidying up, some people help with the baby. And then after breakfast is another set work time. So breakfast might take an hour, but then after that, there will be a time where everyone's working again. So that includes chore time and cleaning up the kitchen and those kinds of work. And then another work time is late afternoon before supper, so we have about 2 hours there where everyone's working. Some people are going to follow up on house projects, whatever we're in the middle of. Some people find dad, and if he's off on something and he needs a helper, and then other people are making supper. So we try to have these designated work times where just everyone gets an assignment. Most days it's the same assignment, so most people are, if they're on chores, they're doing chores for that whole season. We split it up by seasons. If you're cleaning bathrooms, you're probably going to be cleaning bathrooms for the whole season, and it will be during one of those set work times. So that's how we split it up.
This one was born 4 weeks ago. No, 3. It's very fluffy. They're very fluffy, all right.
This goat was born in January, I think, which is much too early. So we have to keep it in the barn, but they usually are pretty hardy. He's named after she's named after Jennifer Jones. We like to name them after Olympians usually.
And why are you doing that, Tarkus?
Because the bunnies need water, but it's hard to follow water for bunnies from the house to the barn, so we usually do snow.
Oh, okay.
Free time has been sort of a pillar of our homeschool because we ask the kids to work so much. I mean, it maybe so much, maybe like between 3 and 6 hours a day, which is a lot of work for a kid, right?
Well, yeah, I think you're referring to the other half of our year is the summer half.
Yeah.
And way back, going back when we moved here, I could definitely find work for the kids all the time. And so we would have a school tour, and the tour would be finished. But for me, that means I get to do things that are needed, not just things that are a part of the business. And so I could easily say, oh yeah, everybody's going to work on this and everybody's going to work on that. But we made a very conscious decision. That's been tried, and sometimes the kids are very uncomfortable with that, and they remark about it later in life. And so the later in life comments, thinking ahead, had me say, oh, these are kids, and what did I do at this age, and different things like that. Where we said, you're going to, when the work time for the tours is over, now you got an afternoon. There's going to be work around closing the afternoon off, supper time, whatever. But take 2 hours and it's free time. So we're talking about the older 2 kids. That would be the experiment for that. And what we saw was that they were going off and doing things that were projects of their own. It was work of their own making. It was consuming books they hadn't read. They were energetic about doing something. They weren't just kind of looking drained and turning off and lazing around and stuff like that. Some of them are into sports. Some of them are into music. Some of them are into reading, or hands-on projects. And so when I saw that growing out of free time, I realized that it wasn't a loss to let them do what they wanted. It was a gain in all the directions that can take a person, in letting them develop those interests and learn. It was learning, it was education, and it was beneficial.
One of the aspects of free time that makes it successful for us is we started out with this rule of not having screens during free time. So now that changes as the kids get older and there's more useful activities that they want to do on screens, or they get older to the point where we can't tell them not to use their screens anymore. But the general idea is this free time is totally free. You can go wander around in the bush if you want to, but it's not going to be parked in front of a screen. So that gives them a lot of freedom and yet not complete freedom, and we don't feel like they're wasting their time. Even if they were wandering around in the bush all afternoon, we don't feel like that's a waste of their time. There's many ways to be useful, and it's good for their minds to just be flexible and free. I think having sort of an intensive work schedule that bookends our day, and then having the reading school time in the morning, that gap in the afternoon, they value it so highly. They really want to get everything they can out of it, to the point where, sometimes there's crying when it's over, Okay, guys, 10 minutes left. Meet me in the kitchen. It'll be, I'm not done what I want to get done. So it's kind of a balancing act, but we can tell it's a useful part of our family habits, so very enjoyable.
Okay, Tex, what are you doing right now? You reading?
I was reading, yes.
Is this part of your free time?
Yeah.
Yeah? What do you like to read?
Well, stuff like this.
What is it?
Encyclopedia Brown.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah. Okay. Do you often read for free time?
Not mostly, but
Today?
yeah.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. And do you play with your younger siblings at all? Or younger sibling?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Do you do that often or not too much?
I do it pretty often, yeah. My least favorite thing is probably chores.
Is there a reason you dislike that chores?
Yes.
Like, because it's cold out? Do you want to tell us?
Because, yes, it is cold, and, yeah.
Okay. Are you happy being homeschooled?
Yeah.
So our school season is only, we generally say it's from October to April. So to us, school season is the time where we're making sure to do our read alouds, and we're making sure that the kids who, in the middle ages where they have assigned subjects, which some of them do, at some ages they have assigned subjects, making sure that they're getting time to do those. Often that's during their free time. They're set loose, and you've got to fit your math into this segment here. So from October to April, that's how we see that fitting all of those academic time of the year. But starting in May, we pop outside in the morning, and we often are working all morning, and the kids still have free time in the afternoon. They can come in and finish a math lesson, but we're working, and then we offer tours to the public, so that's a whole different level of education where the kids are learning to speak to groups of people and answer questions and care for animals with people around.
Was it tough, I guess at some point the transition, or maybe it wasn't a transition, but kind of stating in your own mind and your philosophy that you were only going to homeschool from October to was it April or May, like that shortened a condensed homeschool schedule? Was there pressure outside at all?
No, not at all. There's occasionally questions from people. But for them, and a lot of because of the nature of our work, we have a lot of questions from public school teachers. They're on the yard here. They want to know, oh, it's May. Your kids are out here working with you. How can this be? And when you say, well, when you have individualized one-on-one tutoring as your education, you can really be a lot more efficient. And no further question is needed. They just shrug, oh, of course, because that is exactly what it is. You can be more efficient. Now, our style of education does not have a weekly demand. And if we don't finish that, it carries over to the next week. And then all of a sudden it's piling up. And oh no, we're going to reach the end of June and we're never going to get finished. We don't even have that. So when we reach the end of April, we just close the books where we are and we plan to open them again right there in October. And there's no sense of, but they haven't finished grade 8, because that's not, that book wasn't grade 8. That book was grade 2 and it was grade 7 and it was grade 11 in different ways for different people. So having a short school year doesn't cause any anguish for us. The other factor is living out in the country. Our life is very seasonal because we plant a garden and we have the animals and then we have the tours and then we have fun. We want to have some fun in the summer. And so it would be just desperately unusual for us to be sitting inside for hours at a time between May and September. There's just so many other things to do. That was not a challenge to say this. These aren't school months. Not for us.
It's funny when visitors to the farm are climbing on the school bus and heading home, they say to the kids, okay, you guys have worked hard already, but I guess now you got to hit the books, so good luck with that. And the kids always just, yeah, we're going on 2 hours of free time now. But the work ethic is strong. It's just not externally imposed by some other curricula scheduling. It's imposed by a desire to, this is what I want to learn and consume it and really do it well. And they have seasons of the year for each of those things.
And when I say close the books, I mean the times where we call them all together and say, sit down now because we're reading this book. There are myriad of books being opened for fun in each individual bedroom and lap on their own time. So there's very few of our kids that would not read for pleasure during the summer. It's not like there's 4 months or 5 months of the year where they're not reading or even writing. Most of them are doing some kind of writing as well, just on their own time. So we're not really concerned about, what do they call it? Summer knowledge loss or something. Like there's this term for what happens over summer where the kids forget everything. That doesn't bother us.
I'm Avril, and I am 13, and I am the 4th child in this family.
Do you like being 4th?
Yeah, it's pretty good, because then I can go both with the older kids and the younger kids. So I've been learning German for almost 2 years now, and it is very fun, and the Resistone is a really good program, and I really am enjoying it. I got to choose which language, and I wanted one of the more common ones like Spanish, French, or German. And Celeste was already doing French, so I wanted to do German since we know some families who speak German, so that I could communicate with them. I enjoy reading and writing mostly. I also, I do letter writing and then write in my journal, and then reading just whatever for fun. And then I also play some piano, and then some math, and yeah.
Well, we started out like everybody starts out commonly with a lot of assumptions about trying to make sure we do school like school was done when we did it. You know, we started out thinking that, well, on the one hand, we didn't go out and buy anything. We didn't go out and impose.
No, we had a very strong ethic to not spend money.
Yeah.
So that really helps us not pile up with a lot of stuff that we're not using now, which is good.
But if you look at the changes that we made over the years, it all traces down to shedding some of the common assumptions that school has to be done one way and school has to be done on a schedule that we were used to in the schooling that we took. We've moved away from one thing or another and one subject or another because the opportunities are way bigger than that, and it came slowly, and it just takes time and realization and conversations and examples from others. And
I think we always had the attitude, or close to always had the attitude of, oh, we realize that there aren't certain little pieces of knowledge that have to come about at a certain age. Pieces of knowledge are acquired in many ways at different times of life throughout your whole life. So we are not even going to try to say that this particular age of child needs to know this certain set of information. But the aspect of let go of some parts of the bookwork, like for example, math, we started out following workbooks for grade 1, grade 2, and it took until, till our oldest was, I think, he maybe would have been 8 or 9 before we started doing a bit more reading on the type of schooling that we wanted to do, and decided, this is this area of math is not something that needs to be tackled through workbooks and textbooks at these early ages. There's in fact research that shows kids do better if they start in with the formal work when they're 10, 11, 12, and they catch up right away to their grade level, and then their brains are much more equipped to move on to more advanced math. So that's one aspect of what we do that's kind of unusual. We don't start any math book work until they're about grade 5, and then they start right in with grade 5 math. We didn't start that until we were a few years into it. We thought that was just going to be an integral piece of what homeschooling was, filling in all the blanks in a math book that had the right number on the cover. And we completely abandoned that up until that older age. But the reading aloud part, where that became our central, our core educational model, that reading aloud part was, I think it was 2011. So, for the last 6 years, we've been using the read aloud, several hours of read aloud as our core education, and that was just an expansion of what we were already doing. We already loved reading out loud and did it a lot. So
okay, I suppose if you've had cameras in this place, you know that we're renovating our house. That's been true for 8 years, something like that. We're always working on something to do with outdoors, the farm or the house. That's kind of our winter project. We made a decision to live inside our renovation just because of totally practical reasons. When it came time to do the renovation, I wanted to build my own house, work on it. I wanted to make that something I could do over the times in winter where there was a need to find something to do. I wanted our kids to be in an environment where they could be shown things that they could accomplish and that they could do if they were given the chance. And so we built a house this fall for Danny's parents as a family with other families. Her siblings also have homeschool kids. And so through that process, I mean, right from pushing dirt on the ground to finishing out the interior, the kids saw the whole thing and the whole process. They also learned the skills. And they are now, independently, I'm able to say to Danny, okay, give the kids this project in the home. I need to do something that complements that so we kind of get to the point where we can close this off. But if they could all do these things and I don't have to be too involved, all the better. And so it gives them confidence in being able to face the question, can I do this? And the answer is, yeah, sure, there's got to be a way, and we can do that. It's not pretty living in a construction zone, especially some of the stuff that we need to rip out or do. But as an occupation, I think it's honorable. I think it's worth it, and I think it's productive in their education and their learning.
Right now we are taking apart our house entirely, so we're rewiring the entire ceiling of our place, and I have been tasked with putting all the lights new in the ceiling. So wiring through the ceiling and then poking the wires into boxes and then turning on all the lights and figuring out which breaker to flip. So that's a lot of things that I do right now, working with that. It's quite a big project.
Complementary to house building is baby care, which is sort of a new thing in our life in the last year, but it happened way back when the other kids were babies too, that we really want them to sink their teeth into knowing how to look after a baby. So right now at our place, every kid has one day of the week where they get the baby up, they change the baby, they feed the baby, they put the baby to bed. And so they have to put some of their own activities aside and do that. But they also get to have a lot of time with her, which they value. So it's a happy time. It's fun for kids and fun for baby too. Fun for mom, because I get to do a few other things that I wouldn't otherwise get to do during the baby stage, but now with a bunch of big people to look after her, and they're learning a lot. Actually, the number one thing that has changed our perspective many times over the years, what has adjusted, has been going to hear speakers, like sitting down in front of speakers, not just about homeschooling, but about parenting, about discipleship, about just biblical thinking, and hearing those speakers and considering and going home, talking about it, and saying, how does this fit with what we're actually doing in our house? And then it just evolves your thinking over time. So I think hearing speakers, I don't know, that's the first thing that comes to mind, is very pivotal to not getting stuck in a rut for not ever changing your thinking, because there's so many ways that homeschooling can be done. Another thing is to look at other families that you respect and admire and say, oh, what are they doing? What are they not doing? And having that be a little checking point for you to say, okay, maybe there's something we could change. We don't have to keep doing it the same as we always have.
I think a important thing would be to know what the test is for, are we getting something done that we want to be getting done? We need to be prepared to ask some questions of our relationships within the family. And you're going to be examining the success of the goal of homeschooling is far beyond anything that has to do with, like, the word school can be just taken out and replaced with discipling or relationship building, or raising children for the life that God is calling them to. And so relationships are the test. Is it fun and enjoyable to be a part of this family and this venture, whether it's academics or the faith of the family, or the work of the family, or the things that you do together? Is it fun and enjoyable, and are the kids enthused, or is it constantly pushing things uphill? Is it friction, and is it breakdowns, and is it stress, and is it unenjoyable? Mm-hmm. When those things are apparent, now you have a score on, oh, what do we need to be paying attention to? What do we need to be adjusting, and how do we address that? There are people who get paid to have friction and call it school. As a family, we don't have to stay there and be involved with that. Let's say that we can just take that out and focus on making the relationships right. And if that means that it doesn't look like books in school and math class, then it shouldn't look like books in school and math class. It means that the relationship should be the priority, and set all that stuff aside and focus on the priorities, so that everything else that comes out of that grows from the right basis.
And that doesn't mean we give up on everything that somebody just doesn't want to do. We as parents do decide what each kid needs, but we do evaluate, not based on an external measure that we're trying to meet, but on something that we have decided before God. Okay, this is what our family needs. So we do have requirements for them.
Our experience with the Lawrenson family was extremely enlightening, as it gave a window into the real life of a homeschooling family, their principles, methods, routines, and beliefs. Not only that, but we were also struck at just how much the way they homeschooled was specifically tailored to their family's needs. This is a great encouragement that homeschooling isn't about doing everything the same way or in the same style. It's about having the ability to use homeschooling as an avenue to disciple your children and embracing the many different ways that looks like as your family follows God.